you're aware or not, everybody knows somebody. They affect 1.6 million people in the UK today, and last year they cost the NHS £4.6 billion. They also have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. What am I referring to? I'm referring to eating disorders. So what is an eating disorder? I can tell you what it isn't. It's not exclusive. It can't be defined by any age, gender, race, weight, or background. You're probably thinking of the stereotypical thin, white female. But this is not reality. In fact, 11% of cases are male. And most sufferers are not visibly underweight. The fact is that for the most part, eating disorders are invisible, and anyone can develop one. I was 14, and to this day I still struggle, despite being largely recovered. I was in a cycle of restricting my food intake massively, dangerously, and then eating a lot in one go, or binging. I was therefore diagnosed with EDNOS, or eating disorder not otherwise specified, although a lot of my behaviours mimicked those of anorexia. That's the thing with eating disorders. You can't put them in a little box. Every case is different, and every case is equally valid, no matter what your symptoms. I later spiralled downwards in terms of my mindset and my weight, and it became medically dangerous, so I was admitted to an inpatient facility. Here I spent 15 months and was sectioned for treatment I was too ill to consent to. Long story short, I was in hell. Now that I've reached a healthy weight, I'm out of hospital, completed my A-levels and got to university, I have a point to put across. It's not about weight. It's not. I would say I was just as ill at a healthy weight as I was when I was severely underweight. What needs to be remembered, and what is so often ignored, is that it's a mental illness. Its severity cannot be determined by a physical criterion. And yet, in the NHS, because resourcing is so limited, there has to be a way to determine who gets treatment soonest. And so therefore, the lower your weight, more often than not, the more treatment you receive. Although this isn't the NHS's fault, it can be incredibly damaging for the sufferer. I know that I felt totally invalid and not worth treatment unless I ticked all the boxes, i.e. was a perilously low weight. And this exacerbated my symptoms and led to them becoming more ingrained. I want to tell anyone who's struggling that the symptoms you do and don't meet when you Google eating disorders are not important. Not to me, and they shouldn't be to anyone else either. All of our struggles are equally valid, whether we're underweight, overweight, binging, restricting, or anything else. It doesn't matter whether you're aware of a problem or not. It doesn't matter whether you've been suffering for weeks, months, or years. It doesn't matter whether you have one symptom or 20. You all have a real issue and you are all worthy of support. This is where BEAT come in. BEAT are the UK's eating disorder charity, and they are there for anyone who's struggling or anyone concerned about a friend, colleague, or family member. For me, BEAT were a lifeline when I felt like I was drowning. They allowed me to speak out and offered free, confidential, and unbiased support when I felt completely unworthy of it. They encouraged me to share thoughts which I was terrified of voicing because it made them real. BEAT offer 365-day-a-year helplines, including one exclusively for students. Behind me on the screen is a series of symptoms that allow early identification of eating disorders. Notice that not one of them mentions weight or BMI criteria. So if you or a loved one is struggling, please reach out. The help is there and we are all so worthy of it all. We don't need to be ashamed, we don't need to hide, and we don't need to fit into any stereotypical mold that society has created. The thoughts in our heads and the struggles we face are real and scary, and sometimes they may all seem impossible. But remember this one thing: you are not alone.